I mean, I've totally blown. Just keep the faith. Know you're doing the right thing.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dawn, former 256 marathon runner and aiming to run the Manchester Marathon in sub 3 hours 30. I'm also hoping to qualify for the England Masters female 60 team.
And I'm John, former 242 marathon runner, looking to run the Manchester Marathon in under 3 hours 15 for a London Good for Age qualification place. And this morning we did our latest marathon workout, and the session was 2 miles warm up, 2 times 4 miles at my Lactate Threshold 1 effort, and then 2 miles cool down.
I did the same session, but instead of using heart rate, I ran to feel. So without further ado, let's dive in and see how that session went.
So if you've been following this channel for a while, you may remember a few weeks ago I had a lactate threshold test, the results of which told me that my LT1 point was around 145 heart rate, and I should do lots of my marathon training at or just under that particular heart rate. So today's session was aiming to work between 140 and 145 heart rate to raise my lactate threshold and improve my marathon potential. So we've done a similar run to this 2 weeks ago. That was 2 times 3 miles with the lactate threshold efforts coming out at 8:04 per mile on average. So the expectation was for hopefully something similar today. So here we are in the first mile, and already you can see Dawn is beginning to edge in front of me as I'm trying to keep the heart rate under that 145 and already getting up to close to that zone already.
I'm running to feel, and at this stage I'm feeling okay.
So mile 1 comes up, and you can see nowhere near the pace we did last time, but 1, we are running up the slope, which is usually 20 seconds a mile slower, and B, it is a bit windy, so nothing to hugely worry about at this stage. So into mile 2, I'm still struggling to keep that heart rate within the correct zone, but I'm determined to do so, and you can see Dawn pulling further ahead here. So into the third mile, and I face a decision. Do I increase the pace to keep up with Dawn at around my marathon effort plus a few seconds per mile, or do I rigidly stick to my heart rate? I decide on the latter because that is the purpose of the session and why I did the lactate test in the first place. Usually I like to let the heart rate climb from 140 up to 145 by the end of each part of the session, but you can see here we're redlining it again on 145 at about 2.5 miles. So you can see Dawn pulling further and further ahead. It's taking a great deal of mental discipline to stick to my set heart rate, but I'm determined to do so. Sometimes it's as hard to stick to a plan even though it isn't going right than to jettison the plan and think I'll just catch up and have a good paced run. You can see the fourth and final mile going up the slope is into the 850s. I mean, quite frankly, that would be the pace I'd expect on a general run, not a lactate specific session. So really not having a good day at the office on this run.
At halfway I was feeling okay, a little bit slower than I'd hoped for, but then I realised that the session that I thought I'd set into my watch actually wasn't appearing on screen. Not a happy Dawn at this point. I kind of just it a little bit and said to John, I'm not going to carry on with the session, and I decided I was just going to run with John back down the trail for the second 4 miles.
So as I said earlier, we have been running into quite a stiff wind going up the trail, so there's a hope that coming back down will be a bit quicker. In the first couple of miles, miles 5 and 6 of the session, I did pick up the pace a little bit. So by the end of mile 6, I knew I was getting fatigued again, and I would slow for the final 2 miles of this section like I did for the final 2 miles going up. So I told Dawn to crack on. I could see she was running well. I told her to go and execute 2 7:45 minute miles for the final 2 miles. So there we go, off she runs into the distance. You can see her getting further and further away as I stick to the prescribed heart rate. Still redlining it here, as you can see, 144 to 145. No respite from that heart rate drift. So 2 faces here. First the watch face of doom. Secondly the face of a man really not having a great session.
I mean, I've totally blown.
about 8:45 pace for a session. Just keep the faith, know you're doing the right thing for your running long term. So well done, Dawn. She absolutely nailed those last 2 miles. I think a 7:45 and a 7:46 as planned. As for me, I just closed it out and completed it. So the face of a man who thinks he's done the right thing, but it was really tough to do so, and the face of a woman who's had a pretty good session. So quick first impressions, absolutely gruesome session for me. I'll go and unpick it a bit later, but I just got through it.
Mine went a bit wrong, in all honesty. I thought I'd plugged the session into my watch and I hadn't, so I just hit the start and the finish, and then in the middle of the session I lost it a little bit, but this man kept me going because he kept his head, and then he took over because I was like, I'm not doing this session, so he took over, and if it weren't for him I wouldn't have finished. So well done, John.
What was it Kipling said, if you can keep your head when all around you are losing theirs?
So, sticking to the saying, don't let the Garmin be your master.
That's right. I mean, it's basically 4 miles up, a bit of a 2 or 3 minute break, then 4 miles down, so I decided it wasn't worth plugging into the Garmin. Just run for 4 miles, stop the watch, jog around a bit and run 4 miles back with the Garmin on. Simples. It's a training tool, not a training master.
Absolutely.
So the overall average pace for the Lactate Threshold 1 sections of this run worked out at 8:27 per mile compared to 8:04 on a similar run 2 weeks ago, although that was over 2 times 3 miles. So though there was a bit of wind, which might take account for 10 seconds a mile, that still leaves me between 10 and 15 seconds per mile off where I thought I would be based on the previous Lactate Threshold session. So the big and obvious question is, why that drop off? I think the first and major factor was I had done a gym strength and conditioning session the previous evening, including some new exercises on the rower, the ski erg and some farmer's carry, which I think had left my legs feeling a little bit fatigued. Secondly, I was probably a little bit underhydrated. I had a very busy week at work and the hydration had suffered on 1 or 2 days and I hadn't got enough fluid and electrolytes into my body. And on a related note, cumulative work tiredness from the week had probably caught up with me. So did I make the right decision in sticking to my heart rate and letting Dawn edge ahead? Well, time will tell on that one, but I'm a firm believer, if you have a plan, you set out and you stick to it. And as it says in the Bible, be strong, do not be discouraged, for your work will be rewarded. I certainly hope that's the case for the work I put in on this Lactate Threshold session.
So, we hope that you've enjoyed joining us for our latest session for the Manchester Marathon 2024.
If you have, please give this video a like, and if you've not subscribed already, we'd love you to join us on more training sessions towards that marathon. So until next time, keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on.